What's going on, Marvel Rivals fans? I've seen a lot of new Marvel Rivals players and new Cloak and Dagger mains, so I wanted to come on here and make this video today. Even if you aren't a Cloak and Dagger main, stick around because you might learn something you didn't know that can help you get more heals as a DPS or a tank. Before we get into the video, I just want to give a quick thank you to all the new subs. You guys went absolutely nuts on my last video, so keep expecting the Marvel Rivals and gaming related content coming every week. Make sure you stick around to the end because I may or may not have added some of the most recent leaks to the very end of this video. So again, thank you. I'm super grateful, and with all that covered, let's get straight to it. And jumping right into it, I want to cover some of Cloak and Dagger's abilities again because I feel like some of the details aren't super clear but are also super essential to their kit. So starting off with Dagger, Dagger's left click Light Force Dagger shoots a dagger but also creates an AoE that's very easy to miss that heals anyone inside of it, including yourself. This AoE covers about a 7-meter radius and even heals yourself and allies when inside of it, even when you're doing damage to the enemy. Continuing with the abilities, Dagger Storm is an AoE heal bubble that heals your teammates inside of it over time, and it has a 14-second cooldown. Veil of Light Force is a spell wall that advances in the path that you cast it. It heals teammates upon touching them and also boosts incoming heals from all team strategists. And her last ability is a shift ability, which obviously is to switch to Cloak, but what you might have not known, it also resets your ammo count as Dagger, giving you a window to cancel Dagger's dance recharge. Now, before we get into Cloak's kit, a common thing that I see is that people use Cloak a little bit too much. Realistically, your time should be split 80-20, with the majority of it being on Dagger, and honestly 80-20 might even be a little too much for Cloak. You might have to drop it down to like 15-10% of the time. Just basically, Cloak is very situational, and even when you're doing damage, you want to kind of focus on Dagger because you do get the heal backs even in those close range fights. Dagger's main attack is a drain similar to Scarlet Witch or Moria's from Overwatch. It goes around 10 to 15 meters if I remember correctly, and honestly I only use this when players are lower than half health and I'm getting pushed hard, but at the same time I rather settle for Dagger's AoE because I do get the heal back on those close range fights. Dark Teleportation is probably Cloak's most important ability. You're going to want to use this to shield teammates from incoming ultimates like Iron Man, Jeff, Wanda, basically the one impact ults. One thing to note is that if your allies are shooting or reloading or using an ability of any kind, they won't get in the shroud. When not using it to dodge ults, it's super important that you use it to reposition. I always love trying to find high ground or just getting around corners. It can leave you sometimes a little vulnerable if you don't have really anywhere to go because they can track it a little bit, but it's definitely a super good ability for reposition. Terror Cape is the exact opposite of Veil of Light Force, increasing damage taken by enemies while also blinding them. It's good to increase team damage to enemies. I like using this whenever I switch to Cloak to avoid Dagger's reload, quickly throwing it out especially when teammates and enemies are bunched up. It goes a super long way to help out tanks and DPSs before you switch back to Daggers for that AoE heals and damage. And finally, the ultimate, Eternal Bond, is an AoE field that heals yourself and your teammates while damaging enemies, but the ult heals much more than it actually does damage, with the field only really doing 30 damage per second, and you can stack it up 3 times for 90 per second if you stack all the fields or swipes, whatever you want to call it, while her healing does 220 per second, which means you can stack it up to 660 healing per second, which also can be amplified with Veil of Light Force or Dagger Storm. Honestly, the ultimate is a beast when it comes to countering other ultimates from characters like Star-Lord or Punisher, just because the heal output is so high, especially if you're stacking them, and it's also really good for pushing back enemies on payload or just locking down an area on OBJs. So what does this look like put together? Your main focus is healing output with Dagger's AoE healing. It allows you to heal teammates close together. As you see the increased damage intake of teammates, you want to start comboing heals. Typically, I like to throw the bubble first to create an ongoing AoE heal field. If you see the damage intake is still very high, I throw the wall for increased healing. With the wall, your goal should be not only to try to get teammates inside of the bubble, but also outside of it. So if you can get as many teammates in your line of sight as possible, that's how you can maximize it. Switching to Cloak once you have enough healing or output, or when you want to cancel reload to give your teammates a damage boost and blind enemies, and then quickly switch back. Like I said, to maximize this, you want to switch when your ammo count is low to reset your ammo count. As Dagger, you will get much more damage and kills than you think due to the AoE heal, both healing and damaging one enemy at a time. Like I said, Cloak is more for repositioning and to create a slight buffer during your Dagger cooldowns and to increase damage output from your team with Terror Cape while also resetting ammo. So like I said, Cloak is a very situational character, but at the same time very central to the kit. You don't want to use his shroud unless necessary, for example whenever an ultimate is coming towards you and you want to shroud your team, but like I said, you will only shroud them if they stop attacking, ability usage, reloading, so you kind of have to communicate that. Outside of that, I mainly use a Shroud for reposition whenever teammates like a tank or DPS die in front of me and I'm getting dived on, or when I'm taking a lot of damage and just need to reposition. Typically, I don't really like to use Cloak's left click. Only time I really use it is if I just ulted and the enemies are half or lower, in which case I combo with Terror capability to increase damage, but even then I'm only using it for a couple seconds before switching back to Dagger to rely on that AoE damage / healing. Going back to the ultimate, when ulting you want to keep in mind the current situation. This ult is great for gaining ground when your team is getting stagnant during push the payload, so I typically like to push it forward, not really stacking any of the fields but giving a heal path for the team while also backing up the other team. In that specific situation, this is usually when I switch to Cloak. Right after ulting, I switch for damage amplification with Terror Cape while also trying to kill anyone lower than half health with his right click before I switch back to Dagger. Realistically, you shouldn't be Cloak longer than like 15 to 30 seconds because your goal isn't to kill, it's to amplify damage. For area control game modes, it can be used to really anchor down OBJ for teammates. Another tip for the ult is if you do it in the air, it's a good way to get around barriers, as the ult will still land on the ground in front of you unless there's a platform above you. So if there's any broken down buildings, group walls, or anything like that, it's good to just use Shroud to reposition yourself mid-air and use it from mid-air so it can land on the ground a little bit easier, and it also makes you a little bit more vulnerable because people don't look up that much. If my yapping confused you or you can't really visualize what I'm talking about, please stick around for the longer gameplay, as it will show you a better idea of what it looks like in game, and you can get a better representation of what it would look like in a fast-paced environment of an actual ranked game or casual game. As promised, to end off the video, we got some of the latest leaks, a couple characters, and a bunch of skins that we're going to just kind of rapid fire through to end this video off quickly. If I sound a little bit different, it's because I've been fighting a nasty cold these past couple of days, but regardless of that, let's get into it. First up, we have 3 characters leaked through an ad from Marvel Rivals themselves, showing the Thing as a Vanguard, Mr. Fantastic, and Human Torch as DPS, possibly coming Season 1. Next, we got confirmed through leaks that Ultron will be coming Season 1 as a strategist. Here are his abilities and even leaked merch. That's it for actual character leaks. The rest of these are just skin leaks, so let's rapid fire through them. Up first for the skins, we have Moon Knight. He will be getting his MCU skin alongside a Lunar New Year skin. We also have a couple other characters joining him for Lunar New Year. First up, we have Squirrel Girl, Mantis, and Doctor Strange. Following that up, Doctor Strange will also be receiving a Strange Zombie skin, presumably the one from his movie. And while on that topic, we have 2 new Wanda skins. And finally, to round out the video, we have 2 new strategist skins, one for Loki and one for the main topic of this video, Cloak and Dagger. That's all I got for this video. I know I was a little late, but this took longer than I expected, and also I got sick in the middle of it, so that didn't really help. Regardless, I hope you learned something, and I will catch you guys on the next one.